Welcome, horror fam, to another episode of HHN 365. My name is Jess, and as always, I am joined by Jonathan. What's up?
Hello. I am very excited to have another episode with just me and you.
I know, it's just us again. I can't believe Duff is trusting us again after the Mardi Gras debacle.
Oh,
Um,
yes, so much Mardi Gras, so much Rainforest Cafe.
the tree can't hurt you, Jonathan. I saw it yesterday, actually. They're doing great. I don't want to, yeah, moving on. So if you guys want to follow us, you can do so at HHN365 on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We also have a TikTok at HHN365pod. We also have a Discord, HHN365 Horror Fam. Come hang out, talk with us. We were talking about unmasking earlier and actually having a really fun time with that. Um, and we brought up a question maybe we'll talk about later, Jonathan, about unmasking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, we also have merch if you want to check that out, hhn365.com. And if you want to leave us a voicemail, be on the show, that number is 407-906-4134. And before we get to today's topic, we also will be having a live towards the end of this month. We wanted to bring that up kind of before we got into it. Normally we do it in the middle, but we got a lot going on. So look for something towards the end of the month. We'll have a date in the next week or so, probably for you. And on today's show, we will be discussing Volume 1 of Horror Night Nightmares Hollywood Spec Map, news and rumors about potential houses, and we have some voicemails from some of you guys. So, Jonathan, news is really your area, so why don't you take us away?
See, I wish today's news had a lot of stuff, but it doesn't really. But the stuff we do have is pretty substantial. And so we've been talking about for a while now. Trusted Insider Legacy has been making these clues about potential Horror Nights houses for both coasts, and we answer our Discord server, Agent 365 Horror Fam, and specifically two members on that Discord server, Luigi, Alex, Asian Wiki, and Brant, were able to figure out a cipher to Legacy's clues, and they helped get the answers to a whole ton of clues. And some of those clues actually relate to the map we're going to be talking about a little bit later. So I'm going to hold off the specific Hollywood clues for later so we don't like say them twice in the episode. So let's just focus on the Orlando ones. And the first one is that one of the clues led to devil dogs. Now, as cool as this is, Legacy has mentioned before that this is a likely property that has been scrapped, or original that has been scrapped for this year. So maybe it was originally planned. Maybe it was just a mix up in rumors, but we can assume for now that devil dogs will not be happening due to rumors. The next one is a more confirmation of a rumor of something we've been talking about for a while now, including last episode, and that is Invasion becoming a house for HHN 32. Once again, these are all rumors, but now we have not only Legacy saying it's happening, but also Horror Night Nightmares saying it's happening. So I'm crossing my fingers that this actually ends up being true because it'd be pretty awesome. And the next one is a shared original that is not happening. So this is going to, according to Legacy, obviously this is all rumors. So this is going to, we're going to talk about this a little bit later too, but since it's shared, I'm just going to talk about it now as well. And that is the Japanese Creatures rumored house was likely to be a shared original for Hollywood and Orlando, and Legacy has made it seem like this property is also likely out. I just said a lot of words. Jess, do you have any comments on any of the stuff that I said?
I was letting you go. You had a lot of information to get out. So what's interesting to me is that Japanese Creatures was going to be a shared original. We haven't really ever had that between both coasts. We had Monsters, but that's an IP technically.
Technically, it
So
is.
this like that's really interesting to me that this was a rumor that we were going to share an original, and they probably would have been extremely different, considering how differently Orlando and Hollywood approach things. But that's like the one thing that jumps out to me. It kind of sucks that it's likely out now. But sometimes those late original add-ons, and March is considered late for the lineup, really. They've done stuff obviously quicker, but those late add-ons sometimes slap, and sometimes they are hell block.
They are sometimes hell block. They are, sometimes you walk into a facade and see an H and you just know immediately what the house is going to be.
Was it love at first H, Jonathan, for you, or no with hell block? I've never
I mean,
asked.
if we're talking ironically, yes. In
Or in
real
all
life, I
honest.
saw the H and I started crying and I'm like, "Oh god." But but like just talking about like the possibility of a shared original. Let's say the rumor, in a magical world, this rumor is completely true, and there's
Mhm.
and whatever. Just going under that assumption, the only reason I could see, like right now in my head, that a shared original would be pulled is if both coasts got something else to share. Like
Oh.
possibly like another IP came in and like, well,
Oh.
we got, since it's both coasts, we'll just take away an original and instead replace it with an IP. Like that's in my head. That's why they take away something that it seems. I mean, seems like there would have been a lot of collaboration already between both coasts.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. The potential of it being like a new IP or something instead that they were like, yeah, we can put this on the back burner for another year or so.
Which I hope it's on the back burner. I hope if this was true that it does come back, because I think this is a really, like you were saying, a really cool concept that I want to see come to life. But IPs bring the money, so I could see it's like, oh, we got a
Yeah.
good IP. Bye bye, original. See you next year.
And this was rumored to be in the old parade building on the spec map on version 1 for Orlando. So that's, I mean, a spot we've had IPs in. That's a
It
good
is
spot.
true.
It's a big building. So, I mean, look at the fucking Monsters facade last year.
Holy
Like,
crap.
you could fit something really impressive in there. I mean, Ash versus Evil Dead was in there. I know that's not something you think of sets when you think of, but that was an IP that I really loved. So it's a good spot that if they did have to pull something, I could kind of see that being the one that they did.
I can too. And I'm just interested to see what IP would come along that would make them, that would encourage them, both of them, both the coasts, to say, all right, we're doing that, like, just, screw this original, that IP could make us money.
Could could this then tie into that legacy tweet that we had where what if the biggest IP isn't the biggest IP?
It's very possible. It's very possible. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we get to the spec map, or just
Mhm.
more relating to, various clues and seeing how, some of them connect once we get to like discussing the properties rumored. But it is very much possible.
Yeah, the other one that I want to talk about because we've talked about it now, like you said last week, Invasion. We mentioned that, the anchor didn't necessarily have to mean ship in the way that we were thinking. And now that this rumor has like really gotten some legs to it, I really do in my heart think that maybe that anchor was for Invasion to be like for a ship, a spaceship.
Oh,
Because
I
that's
think it was actually.
oh, really? That was like confirmed? Oh, that I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we talked about it when we did the little doo 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 and edited in some
I didn't listen
extra
to it. I
info.
just put it in. I'm so sorry.
No, no, no. You're good. Basically, that anchor that was on the spec map was HNN spec map. They straight out said like it was relating to a ship, so spaceship.
Oh. Wow, so we were smarter than we thought. Look at us, Jonathan.
Exactly. We
We
Duff and
got
I
that
said
one.
we got it right. Like we didn't need anyone else during that clue. We got that clue right all on our own.
Everyone's listening to this, like screaming, Josh, you idiot. We all heard this last week. Sorry, I wasn't part of the doo doo doo. I just put it in the episode and didn't listen. So,
You were part of it in spirit.
I mean, I was part of the episode. I wasn't part
Okay,
of the
okay.
part.
But specifically the doo doo doo.
Oh, wait, did we have a Halloween set? No, okay,
Oh
moving
my
on.
god.
But yeah, I don't know. I've said it before. I wasn't super excited when we first heard like Invasion because sci-fi is not my jam, but I do love that stupid alien. I really do. The one that was in Hellblock with the skirt, that slay. So I feel like I'm gonna have fun in this regardless, and especially if they approach it like bugs, it's gonna be really fun.
And see, this could be an even better bugs because I think it has a potential to get the mix of comedy and horror right. I think that's something Bugs failed to do, and in my opinion, I think Bugs didn't know exactly what it wanted to be. It was kind of right in the middle of being funny and being horrific, and it never really leaned into one. I think if you had Invasion, it would absolutely lead into the comedy aspect, like the goofiness aspect of like these. I mean, the
Mhm.
costumes alone are very silly. So I think you could do it. Could either be something like Slaughter Cinema, where it is very goofy, but because they're aliens and they're like, I'm assuming, I don't know, probing people or doing whatever aliens do, like it's also gruesome at the same time. I think it has the possibility of being just a really epic comedy house if they pull it off right.
Yeah, I'm getting more excited. So we'll find out. I don't know. We it's March 5th when we're recording this, and I know we had our bets what last week or the week before on when the first announcement was going to be. So we're coming up on the first guest.
That'll be right when we release this episode, and then
Of
we
course.
will immediately be outdated.
I mean, that's have you met the show? That's what they do to us every year.
Exactly.
Uh, but yeah, is anything else you want to talk about on these rumors?
I will say that I am happy that Devil Dogs is likely out
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't want it.
I never thought that was like on the nose. It felt very like we're hinting at something else. I don't think it's Devil Dogs.
Apparently, Legacy stated that it was like Devil Dogs, but it wasn't exactly Devil Dogs, and I don't think he was referring
Mm,
to Slaughter Cinema, like Slaughter Cinema 2. I think it was sort of like I'd assume it was like a Yeti,
right.
where it's sort of like Yeti, but it's different. It's a different vibe. It's a different environment. It's expanded upon it a lot more. That it isn't just the goofy B movie little thing they did in the house.
Right. It's like its cousin or it's in the realm of that, movie franchise if we're approaching it like a Slaughter Cinema. They were all movies. So it's like the eighth Yeti movie or something in that
Okay,
franchise. They've moved to a
exactly.
different area, a different terrain. But I'm excited because it looks like we've if these rumors were true, which everything is speculation until we see it from the official Universal or HHN account. But if any of these are true, this seems like there's been some changes lately.
Yeah, and I mean, depending on the way things go, these could be good changes. These could be bad changes. I am. I'm hoping it's the former, and that they're good changes, and we're not. These things aren't getting replaced with things we don't want.
Yeah, for sure. But so it,
So, like the last thing I want to talk about these news and rumors is that there's two more clues that we have not talked about yet. I know some of you have already solved them and already seen them, even seen us post them on social media, going, "Hey, there's two more, right?" I know we're gonna get to them once we get to the Hollywood spec map. So I think that's just where we should move on to now, right?
yeah, for sure. I love talking about spec maps.
Absolutely, absolutely. So pulling it up here, we have the Hollywood spec map. I know usually with these types of episodes, we just go over all of them at once, like, and then sort of dive into them. What
Mhm.
if for this one, we're going to change it up? We just talk about them individually instead of like just giving an overview it
Oh yeah,
like we'll just do H1, H2, H3 and just sort of go down in order.
I like that. Duff's not here. We can do whatever we want. So let's start with, I guess, the beginning. That's a great place to start, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know locations in Hollywood. So if you do, Jonathan, please jump in after me. But first up, we have The Horrors of Blumhouse featuring Megan and Insidious. Oh, it says it. Waterworld Q. I'm an idiot. There we go. It's been a long day. I'm sorry.
it I feel that. I feel that
Oh,
for
I know
sure.
you do. How do you feel about this? I mean, we've talked about it, but
We've talked about it for the Orlando side. The Hollywood side is a bit different because, like we've experienced last year, their Blumhouse, at least according to last year, had a lot of freaky, had a little bit of Black Phone. Do we think that will be the case with this potential house? I mean, the Waterworld queue is the same. I'm pretty sure it's the same
Mhm.
location. Uh,
Yeah, right?
yeah,
Wait.
I think it's the same location that last year's Blumhouse was.
Yes, because it was so weird. I'm sorry, walking in there, like being from Orlando, that location was a weird one to me, like to understand
It was
walking in.
you got to walk around the stadium. You're like, I don't know if I'm going the right way. I hope
Yeah,
I am. I'm just gonna follow these people.
and it's so dark in that corner. Like there's
Hmm.
no lighting, and I was just like, "What? There's a house back here?" And the tour guide was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay." But I mean, hey, that's where it was last year, and I don't. Did it have like a very like a big like divide in the middle like ours did? I don't remember like a start and
No, it
stop.
did. It didn't have a divide. It was a. I think the divide was a classic Hollywood black wall room, and then
Uh,
it's like, all right, here's the poster for Black Phone. But it did have a good scare though, where like the grabber came behind the poster and was like, "Rah," like
they
getting you
do those
ready.
really well. I will always give Hollywood that. That's what got me in Monsters last year is behind the fucking stretchy fabric.
Anything where you can't see where they're coming from, because I mean, like you said, that's one thing I'll really give Hollywood. Orlando, most of the time, you can see the boo holes. You
Mhm.
can see them
You learn the
obviously.
formula very quickly, which
With
is why
Hollywood,
Hollywood's like a breath of fresh air for people from Orlando.
exactly. I've heard interesting things that, like, people in Hollywood, they come to Orlando and say, "Wow, your guys' event is so much scarier." But us
Mhm.
in Orlando, we go to Hollywood, we go, "Wow, Hollywood's is like a little bit scarier." And I think it's just because we get each coast gets used to the way they get scared that when you flip flop for like a day, it completely turns you off balance. No matter what like no matter what coast you start from, if you go to the other one, it's completely different.
Yeah, and then Knott's is honestly even different from the other two. So it's like you got to go visit other haunts. Everyone kind of scares differently. I think that's the biggest takeaway from what we're saying right here.
And if we're talking about Blumhouse, last year's Blumhouse, I think like consistently scared the shit out of me in Hollywood's. I didn't love the house, but I think it was one of the most consistent houses that like got me to fall on the floor. So
Mm,
having Insidious in this house. I don't even like the Insidious movies, or at least the first one. But I think that devil thing, the red monster, whatever,
Darth Maul.
the Darth Maul, exactly. I think Darth Maul is scary as fuck,
Yeah.
and so him in a haunted house, especially something like Hollywood, where Hollywood can't have those types of scares I'm not used to, is going to kill me.
Oh, yeah, Jonathan. The 27 Blumhouse with Insidious and Sinister part of it was genuinely terrifying for me because both of those demons are scary and they
Mm.
were ruthless. So the fact that like the Megan half is going to be funny, and that was the thing last year. Hollywood, I thought, did Freaky better than Orlando, and then we did Black Phone better than Hollywood. So if you would have put the two halves together, I think it really would have been like a perfect house. Not to say I didn't love Orlando's, I really genuinely did, and it surprised me. I just thought our Freaky kind of was the dead end of the house, which a lot of people kind of agreed with. So I'm curious to see who's gonna really Megan's what I want to see. Who's gonna do Megan better if this is true? Because
If
that's
I'm
what
gonna
I'm here for.
guess, like right now, if I'm gonna guess, I think Orlando's gonna do Megan better, and
Mm,
I think in Hollywood's gonna do Insidious better. And I don't really have a reason. I mean, honestly, I do have a reason. Because I think Hollywood's will just be end up being scarier for me personally because of the way Hollywood scares, and I
mm,
feel like that's the most important part of something like Insidious. Like that part of the house for both coasts, I assume is like this part is actually going to scare the shit out of you. Black Phone did not in Orlando for me. I found a lot of it. I did enjoy the creativity of it, and I did enjoy like the things they did, but whenever its goal was to scare me, it never worked. Hollywood had three scenes, and it was like Hollywood had like three or four scenes, and it was such a tiny section of the house, and it arguably was not good. But the grabber had me on the floor, so it did something right.
the grabber in the chair. Just, I mean, also I was so comfortable with Orlando's being a mannequin that I think Hollywood's caught me so off guard.
Mm-hmm.
I was wrecked. I do remember that, but
The
yeah. Hmm.
the dude sat in the chair and was his eyes were closed, and right when I walk right by him, like parallel to him. He like turns he doesn't move his head. He moves his eyes to the left, looking straight at me. And I'm like, fuck. And the exit's like right there. The door's right there. And I'm trying, but he just like jumps up like the fastest he can and
Yeah.
just runs at me. And I'm like, terrifying, terrifying. So that's off tangent, but I think that's why Insidious will be better. And I don't know if Hollywood will actually be able to balance the goofiness of Megan, because I don't
Mhm.
think their Freaky was very goofy either. I think it was
No.
like I think it had a lot of cool kills and a lot of cool scenes, but I wouldn't necessarily call it funny. Megan has to be funny, or else it's not going to necessarily work.
Yeah, and I haven't have you watched the unrated version yet?
I have not. I need to.
Yeah, I haven't either. I have seen something. I one of the kills was on like TikTok or something. Um and I saw it and it was gory, so I'll give him that. But I know that it only adds like what a minute or two onto the runtime
Hmm.
from what I saw. But it really does kind of excite me now for the house because just a little bit of gore made a movie I really enjoyed kind of more interesting to me already.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to watch that at some point. And it will almost certainly be like that extra stuff will almost certainly be in both houses and
Yeah.
on both coasts.
Oh yeah, and there's probably gonna be a water feature as well because one of those kills, man, whoo, the one I saw, there was blood everywhere. So
Oh my god!
I'm expecting I'm expecting some water in this house for this year. But I'm excited for
Well,
that.
that's what Hollywood. I mean, their Killer Clowns was just the whole thing was, hey, let's spray water at you. That's the house. We're just gonna spray water at you multiple
There,
times. That's the
yes,
main scare.
Clowns was a very wet house. Very wet for no reason.
Very wet. You can't get wetter than clowns. So
Oh God, Jonathan. Oh my God. All right, moving on.
let's move on to the.
The,
Uh,
the next one, which make this location makes sense for this property to
it
me.
does. Uh, yeah. So the next one is in the Walking Dead location, which, if you guys remember, that's where Evil Dead Rise. I mean, Universal Horror Hotel was
Bathtub lady.
last year. And it's something that is also rumored for Orlando, and that is The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Now, I know we've talked about The Last of Us coming recently, so we don't need to give too detailed. But Jess is the only one to have seen the show out of the two here. Um, do you think Hollywood has the tools to pull it off compared to Orlando?
I think Hollywood always has the tools to pull it off. I think that their crazy mad scientist lead creative guy is crazy. And I mean that out of love. I think all artists have to be a little crazy. So I
Hmm.
think that Murdy sometimes tries really cool things, but sometimes they kind of flop. So that is my only fear is I think Orlando's gonna kill it with the sets. They're gonna kill it with the makeup. Because I'm not gonna lie, we kind of always have better sets and makeup. Not to say Hollywood doesn't have good sets, makeup, and costuming. I just think that Orlando really has found their groove.
Hmm.
I just worry because it's such a big property and they have dropped the ball before. So is Orlando on certain things, Stranger Things Volume 2. But I'm so hesitant about this property right now because I really am loving the show.
Is there anything from your time at Hollywood, from your
Mhm.
experience at Hollywood, is there anything you think Hollywood could pull off better regarding this show, either a particular scene
Mm.
or like a particular aspect of the show compared to Orlando?
I hope this makes sense because, like, obviously last year was my first year at Hollywood, so I only have a night
Hmm.
under my belt. But Hollywood, I think they really are good at finding the right atmosphere in the house, and that
Hmm.
I mean, it's like the overall vibe. It's not necessarily the scenic or the lighting or the sound. It's that in the houses, I really am uneasy. And in Orlando, maybe it's just because it's my home park. I feel very much at home. And I'll get some scares in the houses, but like this is my turf. So over there, maybe again, like it's a bias because I only visit once a year, but I really do have this like sense of uneasiness in their houses. And I don't know where I'm going and I don't know where it's going to take me. And I feel like that might kill it in The Last of Us if they like do that really well. Like,
I love that take. I've honestly never, I mean, I've never uh, thought about it that way, but I think I've have almost the same feeling as you too. And like you said, it could just be because it's completely different. Like even like last year was my second time going. It just felt complete. It always feels completely different doing
mhm.
Orlando every single day. And you always feel a little more like tense. At least I do because I'm like I know in this park I get scared a lot. Like
Yeah.
no matter what house it is, they find a way to scare me. So yeah, I could see that for sure. And I don't know much about The Last of Us. Really, the most I know about it is from the game, and I'm gonna start watching the show at some point. I know the show's about to come to an end soon, or at least the
Mhm.
season. But I know the game has a lot to do with like relationships, and I'm sure like character interactions, particularly between the main character and the other and the kid character.
Mhm.
From what something I love about Hollywood is that a lot of their houses they take time and they just have scenes. The scene isn't
Mm.
necessarily there to scare you. It's not necessarily there to like be a distraction. It could just be look at this scene that we are showing you acting right now, like not
Yeah.
just like not just you have your perform scare and you come back, but all these people, these scare actors are doing for this particular moment are just reenacting a scene from a show or a movie or whatever, kind of like Halloween where you just had Loomis shooting Michael. There was no scare there, it was just recreating the scene of Loomis shooting Michael. Or in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you had Leatherface on his own. He wasn't really trying to scare you. He was just like hitting his head on a table, like in the movie, to help with that atmosphere, help with
Yeah.
immersing you in the environment. So if that's something they want to do, if they want to dive into scenes from the show and particularly emotional scenes, I think if they do tackle that in Hollywood, I think they could do that very well. Depending on the route they take it.
Yeah, I never thought about that, and that's probably why, like, I feel that way about the atmosphere too, is that Hollywood sometimes really does take the time just to set up a scene for no reason other than you need that context in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say Orlando doesn't, and, like, Orlando always has a very cohesive story, I feel like, in 90% of houses. Um, so, I really do feel like they take the time, and in something like The Last of Us where the show is just the cutscenes from the game, Eugene has played both of them, so he as we've been watching it, and I won't lie, I'm 2 episodes behind, I do need to catch up, but, it is a very good show, Jonathan, and I'm gonna make sure you watch it and I rewatch it before the event if it does end up coming. Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, so he's like telling me like, oh, well, in the game, you would have to, kill all these zombies, and then you would get this cutscene. And he's like, oh, and they changed this and they changed that. I really do feel like Hollywood's going to kind of knock that out of the park, and also they're acting like it's Hollywood. Of course, that's where everybody goes to make it big. So I feel like some of their actors, like, they kind of kill it sometimes in
Ab-
those scenes.
Absolutely, 100%. And I mean, even like a reason I love their Hill House so much is because instead of designing the house in a way where everything was just scare, 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 boo boo hoo, isn't this? It's a ghost house, isn't this crazy? Hollywood took the time to just have a lot of scenes that were just people talking. Even like
Hmm.
in scenarios where you're just walking down a hallway, then one of the walls becomes transparent. You can see just another ghost walking beside you at your same pace. They're not scaring you or anything. They're just like it's just another level of like, oh my god, like I feel like I'm in Hill House compared to I feel like I'm just being scared by a bunch of characters from a show. So
Mm.
so
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
But we should probably move on to the next one. Do you want to take this?
Oh, of course I do, especially because I said something about this a couple weeks ago and you shot me down, Jonathan,
I did.
about the location. And it wasn't on air, but I'm gonna it'll never work. So what I'm talking about over in the Parisian courtyard, we have Universal Studios Monsters Paris, is what the spec map says. So Parisian Courtyard that's where La Llorona was last year,
Hmm.
right? And that's where Bride was in. I almost said 30. They don't do that. What is it? 2020?
2021.
Yeah, words. But we were talking about rumors and stuff before we were recording a couple weeks ago or a week ago, and I was like, I don't know. I feel like if we're gonna do Phantom, we should do it in the Parisian Courtyard because it's in Paris and set the scene. And I love that like corner of the park. And Jonathan goes, it won't fit there.
See, and I still stand by it. I still stand
That's
by it
fine. You can
because
stand by it.
well, hear me out.
Oh, I always,
Here we
please.
go. So we so let first of all, let's before we dive into let's dive into what this is first because there's something drastically changed. So on the Orlando map, HN Horror Night Nightmares map, it was Dracula versus the Phantom, and so we had a general idea of like what it would, I would assume we were both thinking it would just lean into Phantom, and that's where most of the sets were going to take place in the opera house and the all that good stuff. This house changed, and now it's called Universal Monsters Paris. I that changes a lot of things because now it doesn't automatically mean Phantom sets, or at least I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it does. It could mean an original set in Paris that, I mean, from all we know, Phantom doesn't even have to be in it. He probably is because it's
Shut
Paris.
your mouth, Jonathan.
But I'm saying, like, it doesn't have to automatically be the Opera House. It could be other sets in Paris, and it
Yeah.
could be maybe they're having an adventure and they're fighting across Paris or something.
Do you know where's a great place to go in Paris? Notre Dame.
Hmm.
And I would just like to say that on our prediction episode, I might have called them backseat monsters, baby, but I did say Phantom and Hunchback. And I know a couple other podcasts have also said it, and I'm not saying I'm the first. I'm just saying on 365, I called that shit if it's true.
I would love for Hunchback to be involved. I would like Dracula to go very far away. I still am not 100% convinced he is
No,
because
he's
I get
always there.
because I understand too much why Dracula would be in this type of house.
Yeah, and as much as I don't want to see that fanged fuck, I feel like if it's gonna be monsters in Paris, which now that I'm saying it like that sounds like a fucking like vacation movie. It's like the Hotel Transylvania where they go on the cruise ship. Um, but it's in
It's such a
Paris.
specific reference.
I'm so sorry. That's for like the four people who, I mean, more of them, four people who've seen that movie, but it's a children's movie.
I watched it. I don't think
Oh,
it's good.
Jonathan, I am not surprised because I love those movies.
I
We're
thought
not
I
here to
thought I mean, I think the first one's actually pretty good.
same.
For like a family film, I think it's quality. This counts. This is on topic. It's about monsters. It counts.
Yeah.
And, like it's a good family film. It has like good lessons. And then they just after that they're like, we're gonna make bad movies now. I'm like, aw.
I don't know, man. That cruise ship one. But no, I really Paris. It's got to be Hunchback and Phantom, right? Like, there's no way that they're not part of this. Those are the two monsters that are set in Paris.
Are there any others that we're not thinking about that are like in
Oh,
Paris?
I to the Goog. Um, nothing's gonna come up. Let's see. Um,
Doing high tech investigation.
let's see. Well, A Monster in Paris is an actual movie, so
Hmm.
don't look that up. Universal Monsters Wiki. What? There's a wiki for the monsters? I love this.
Insane.
You know what? Google's not giving me what I need right now.
All right, so we'll just guess. I'm sure Gilman is from Paris. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. The Rhine.
So
um what,
so
Jonathan?
yes, so like I don't know. I hope it's Hunchback and I hope it's Phantom.
Mhm.
I'm sure Dracula will be there too. I hope it's those three. But either way, going back to my original point, I think if this was completely set in the opera house, this location is too small
Mhm.
because I love La Llorona. but it didn't really have any grand sets. And I love Bride, their Bride, but when you compare the facade for Bride in their house and compare our facade, which granted, like, is gonna happen no matter what because it's Hollywood, Orlando, but it's such a drastic difference because the size of the Parisian courtyard is not big enough to hold like any elaborate big facades like that
Right.
or big anything like that. And I think if you really have the Phantom, like if you Phantom is in your house in any way, shape, or form, I don't care if they're in Paris, I don't care if they flew to Hawaii, there has to be a giant chandelier
Oh yeah.
somewhere in there. And
That
I don't know how they make that work in the Parisian courtyard.
yeah, that is I understand that where the space does concern me because it's not a large area like you said. But there in my head, I know that if we're going to the opera house, we need to have the chandelier and we need to have the stage and we need to have, the masquerade. Like different things like that I understand, but do we? Do we have to? Could this not all take place in the caverns beneath the theater, like the opera house, where he kidnaps Christine and everything, and like where his lair is? It does it have to take place up in the top if we are crunched on space?
I mean, no, but here's another thing.
That's not what we
I
want. I
want it
know.
to.
I
No, no,
know.
I really want it to take place
Oh,
because if you're
trust
gonna
me.
have anything,
I love
this
these
is
monsters. I don't want to fucking see it like be some rinky dink fucking set. I want to see the opera house. I want a chandelier to fall on my head. Like
for real. No, but like
blunt force trauma. That's what I'm looking for in a house, baby.
exactly. We need that. We need that realistic and realistic scares by getting physically hurt. But the last thing is that I have to say here is that I cannot, like, if we get Phantom this year and Phantom's in both coasts, I don't see him coming for another 30, 20 years, down the line if he ever comes back.
Mhm.
So I want to make sure that both coasts do him well,
Yeah.
and that they don't take this opportunity and mess it up by making it Dracula the house that happens to have Phantom in it.
Dracula the house.
And the only way to do that is you have to lean into a good amount of Phantom stuff, which
Mhm.
is, I mean, the chandelier. Like you just, I'm putting my foot. You have to do it, or else it doesn't work.
What
I don't think it works if you don't have the chandelier.
what if I mean, and again, if we're gonna do Phantom and Hunchback, what if it's split down the middle and it's half in the Opera House, half in Notre Dame, and they use the mirror trick that Universal's used in Gothic and stuff like that to make it look a lot taller than it is, for specifically the Notre Dame part. But what if we're traveling because Quasimodo don't leave that tower? So what is Phantom going to him? Is Drac going to
Hmm.
both of them? Because like Phantom's like a creature of the night. I feel like if we, ooh, what if we're in like the streets of Paris at one point, going between them? Because like
Oh
they're not
God,
next to each
yes.
other. What are they conveniently attached by a tunnel? No, we're
Well,
good.
I mean, did you go through Hollywood's Legends Collide?
Yeah, I did. Jonathan,
I
I
still
did.
remember that. What are these black walls? It's a tunnel that takes you from one area to
Mm.
the other. Like, okay.
Well, whatever it is, I'm really excited, especially just because the setting is. I, I really hope it's both of them. And if we have to throw a third in there because we have to every year, that's fine. I don't really mind who it is as long as it's not Dracula.
The mummy is back. It's like, okay, I guess.
But this time it's actually Emotep.
Yes.
And he's pissed.
He's pissed.
Yeah. All right, shall we move on to the next one since we actually have some stuff to talk about with it?
Kind of.
Yeah.
This one was one we actually talked about a little bit before. By before I made in the news and rumors segment. So I think actually, on the contrary, we can sort of glance over it.
Oh,
And
this is
that
true.
is this is the Japanese creature original that probably isn't happening according to rumors. And in the map, it takes place in the Mummy Queue, which last year was Legends Collide in Hollywood, and the year before that was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So, do you have anything else to say about this original that probably isn't happening?
I'm sad to see it go. I was excited, but excited to see what replaces it potentially.
Absolutely. Now you get the fun one. What's H5? What's the next
Oh,
one?
H5. So this is in, I guess, a sound. Do they have two soundstage locations? Have they always had two?
So this is interesting. So H5 and H6 on the map. Oh, I see what's going on. Okay. So H5 is a soundstage. This is where Weekend was.
Okay.
And H6, if we go later down the map, the lower lot tent, that's where Killer Clowns was. So to
Okay.
enter both of them, you had to go through the soundstage, from what I remember.
Oh, yeah, you did. But what about, I mean, we'll get there, but H9 also says it's in a soundstage. Have they always had two soundstage houses? I know,
Wait a minute. H5 and H maybe they share a soundstage.
but also, so we didn't talk about this before, but there is 8 houses and a terror tram on this map.
Wait, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven,
Or
eight. No,
nine.
that's nine.
9 houses, I'm sorry, 9 houses, that's what I meant. And that's adding a house for Hollywood.
Which
So
is
the
amazing
second,
news.
would that be the second soundstage then that we're seeing? Or the second soundstage house?
I could see it. I mean, they don't always use up that space in the soundstage, and a lot of the space in the soundstage is used for queue.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they take away the queue space
Right.
and move the queue somewhere else, and then use that space for more house.
So the only isn't the is that where the Nintendo entrance is over there?
The Nintendo entrance was like
I don't know Hollywood.
when you walked in to like you saw the like the here's the house, and you walk straight in,
Hmm.
like
The warp
you
tunnel,
saw the
right?
Nintendo mountain. So I think like going straight, like Nintendo was right there.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. I mean, I don't think they're gonna have Nintendo open during the event. Do you think they will? I
Ooh,
know it's the new land, but they could just stick the cues in there. Or a
th-
cue in there.
I would be okay with that. I don't know if they will. I don't know how the contract for Nintendo work
It's
regarding
true.
that. But I mean, they do it with Harry Potter. I mean, Harry Potter. In order to get to houses, you have to walk through Harry Potter, and
Yeah.
so I could see them using Nintendo for like extra queue space if they need it.
Yeah. Hmm. I don't know. Well, okay, let's get into it. We haven't even talked about the house yet. We talked about location, but that's interesting if they're going to split a soundstage because I don't think they've done that. I mean, I know they didn't do it last year. It was just the weekend.
I don't think they've ever done that before.
And it
I
was
think having
Exorcist in 30, right? Or
it
30
was
and
Exorcist in 30,
yeah.
which didn't need to be in the soundstage, but it was for some reason,
Mhm.
and in yeah, in 31 it was Weekend. Well, not 31. Damn it, you messed me up now.
I'm sorry.
Whatever. What's the house we're talking about?
So this one is really interesting. It's Nightingale's Blood Prey, which would looks. I mean, that looks like a take on the Orlando original because that's what ours was called, the first one.
I mean, it's exactly what ours was
Yeah.
called, and I mean, to make it even more interesting, we had a different one called Nightingale's Blood Pit. So they're very distinct houses depending on what that second those last two words are. So Blood Prey was, like you said, our original house in HHN. I think it was 21, based on World War I, and it is an incredibly famous Orlando original, similar in the vein of Scarecrow, where everybody knows it. Everyone knows Scarecrow. Everyone knows Nightingale's Blood Prey. It's known as one of the best Orlando originals among the community, for those who went and for those who haven't went. And this was a house that Legacy also had a clue on. So we have another. Like I was holding off clues. This is one of them. So not only is this on the HNN map, but Legacy also thinks this is coming as an exclusive to Hollywood. And I have to ask Jess.
Mhm.
So you were able to go through both Scarecrows. I was only able to go through Hollywood Scarecrow. Seeing how they translated a popular Orlando original and turned it into the house they had last year with their version of Scarecrow the Reaping. Do you think that a would you be excited for something like Nightingale's Blood Prey to come to the event? Do you think they would mess it up? Do you think they could hit it around the same level? Like what are your thoughts on Nightingales?
So I liked Scarecrow last year. I really did. La Llorona was one of my favorite houses ever, but um it was a really good take on our house. Was it was it our house? Absolutely not. But it was better than what I expected. I did not get to see Blood Prey. I got to see Blood Pit, obviously.
Hmm.
So and I didn't love Blood Pit. I didn't hate it. I mean, that's kind of how everyone felt about it. But I know Duff, Nightingale's Blood Prey is one of like his favorite houses ever. And he liked the the Blood Pit one, but obviously it wasn't anywhere near Blood Prey. So that's my fear, is that like even Orlando hasn't been able to touch this house that they created, and it's like
Hmm.
really like highly regarded, and so is Scarecrow. But Scarecrow doesn't have the years behind it that Nightingale's does. So people are kind of
Exactly.
crazy about it, like crazy fans like us. So they're gonna hold it really close, and we were really protective of Scarecrow, and I thought it was good. But that's my fear, is that people are gonna get crazy. And also, does Hollywood do flying scares? I'm
Does
not like
Hollywood do
familiar.
flying scares?
I'm not
I'm
familiar.
sure they have. I'm sure there has to be some examples in some years, but I mean, they would have to if they had Nightingale's Blood Prey. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's part of the thing. Just like in Scarecrow, they had to have the birds. They had to have the corn, and that final scene. Like, there are certain things with Nightingales you have to hit, like the tank facade. Like, you got to have something similar to that. You know, like um, they're gonna have to hit things that the original had. So I'm sure that they're gonna do their best, like they did in Scarecrow, to hit all of the beats that everyone loved from the house.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully,
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's in a soundstage, so if they're gonna do flying scares, soundstages make sense to me, I guess.
yeah. I
So,
mean, this house like excites me a lot, incredibly. I'm like you. With Blood Pit, I thought Blood Pit was very average. I cannot remember like anything from it. I think the sets.
Victoria! That's all I
I do
remember.
remember that. I do remember some voice lines,
I get one
and
trigger a house. That's all I ever remember.
the designs. I honestly, I was. I know a lot of people weren't a fan of the designs, and I don't know if I would be if I saw both versions of the Nightingales.
Yeah.
But considering that was my first introduction to them, I thought they were scary and they did the job because I don't like birds, so they worked. They 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 scared me, so I think the designs were a success. But yeah, I didn't love Blood Pit. However, even if I didn't love Blood Pit, that does not lessen my excitement at all for having the potential to see Nightingale's Blood Prey again, like for the first time, like ever, because this is one of those houses where I'm like, if I had a time machine and I can go back and see it, this would be one of them, because just I think being in the trenches and like seeing how like in a like having like an immersive house based on history while also mixing in fantasy and intense scares and very cool scares and very cool visuals and like awesome sets and effects. Like, I think this house, I mean, from what it sounds like it was a master at all of these. And I just think it could be really cool to see, especially after having seen Scarecrow for the first time in Hollywood. And I didn't see it in Orlando for the first. I didn't see it in Orlando, so Scarecrow was my first experience with it. And even though it was my first experience with it, I felt like I got the gist of it. Like, I got the gist of why people love Scarecrow so much.
For
Yes, it
sure,
wasn't as
yeah.
scary as
Hmm.
Orlando's, but I got like oh, I love this house. I can get why people enjoy this, and I think it'd be
Yeah.
sort of the same for Nightingale's Blood Prey, even if it is not on the same level as it was originally with Orlando.
Yeah, like we said, the vibe and atmosphere will be there for sure. So
Hmm.
I'm excited, and like you said, like being in the trenches is really cool. I know I joked about it with knots in the grimoire at like at the house, because that one we just jumped around, but like actually being in the trenches, like in like the World War, like I kind of love that idea, and I haven't seen it obviously, so I would love to see Hollywood tackle it, especially if they're gonna put an original in a soundstage. That's not something that they do a lot. Usually, it's their big IP.
Hmm. And
So yeah.
remember in the past too, in a Q&A, John Murdy was talking about Orlando Originals, and he did mention by name Nightingale's Blood Prey.
Yeah.
Like he said, this was one of his favorites and one he'd like to adapt. I'd have I almost have a funny theory that it was never planned, but then he wrote that, and Orlando went like, "Hey, we got plans. You want to make it?" He's like, "Okay," like after seeing that
Mm.
tweet from the Q&A.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that.
Probably didn't happen, but I'm just like maybe there's a world where that happened. There's a multiverse where that
Hey, they
exact
talk
scenario happened.
sometimes, I guess. Jonathan, do you want to talk about the next one that I would rather
No,
not talk about, but we gotta, unfortunately?
I hate that we have to. I hate
Mm-hmm.
that we have to. So this takes place in a lower lot tent. So, Killer Clowns. Yeah, I love Killer Clowns. Great house. I don't love this though. The Exorcist. What the fuck? Um,
To be fair, isn't it the anniversary? What is it? Is it 50? No, that's a lot. Is it 50? Am I making that up? 50 is a lot.
it could be some anniversary, but I think
Isn't
the
there an
more
anniversary?
I'm sure that I'm sure there is, but I think the more important fact is that there's a new movie coming out this year.
Oh, I don't keep up with movies.
Who watches movies, Um, but like, especially horror movies. But like I'm sure that's why it would come because there's a new movie coming out. Um, would it be based on that new movie? I'd say not likely because the new movie comes out, I think, in October. So unless you want the whole new movie spoiled, I don't think you could make it based on the new movie. So it'd probably be,
It is 50 years this year. It came out
hey, there we go.
it came out in 73.
But just like, I know you didn't see Exorcist in
No.
2021 at Hollywood, and I did, and I thought it was a good house. I enjoyed it a lot. But like they just had it. They just had it in 2021. And I'm sorry, you can be the most creative person in the world. And I'm going to
Mhm.
eat my tongue depending, bite my tongue, not eat, whatever, depending on, depending on, depending on how they actually executed. But I personally don't think if you are just doing the first movie, you can do anything different than what you did before. Because what you
Yeah.
do when you have Exorcist is you have here's the bedroom, and then you're in her head. Here's the bedroom. You're in her head, demon. Here's the bedroom. You can't do anything else because that's the entire fucking movie. Like that's the whole movie. And the fact that both coasts had the same property, basically did the same thing when they never do that unless the weekend's telling them to. Um, that's telling you something.
Literally. Yeah, oh. Yeah, I haven't seen it at the event, but that doesn't mean I need to see it at the event. So,
I will say, like, it's fun to see.
yeah.
Like, it's definitely as much as I didn't care for I was like, interested in Exorcist. I was happy that I was able to see something that I thought was gone forever. Because like who would bring the Exorcist back? Especially a second, a third time. Who would think
Literally.
about that? Um, but it is from like a movie fan standpoint. It is really cool walking into those scenes. I usually don't like geek out that much in regards like, oh my god, IP, here's the scene from an IP or whatever, but like everybody knows The Exorcist. Everybody knows the iconic scenes from The Exorcist. So seeing them in person, I think if it's this is the same house, I think you will have a positive like, oh, I like that. This is cool. I'm in the
Yeah.
movie. That's a famous movie. Like I think you might have like a more positive feeling towards it compared to me, where I'd be like, fuck this. I just saw this. It's the same shit.
You really expect too much of me, Jonathan, because have you met me? I've only seen Michael Myers at the event twice, and I could have seen him twice less and been very happy. Uh,
The difference is Exorcist is at least a better house than Michael Myers.
I don't know, man. It's the same room over and over again, and
It at least has no doo doo doos. There are zero doo doo doos in the house.
that's fair. But also, like, there's a lot of water.
There is honestly the only thing I remember that was water was the thing you're thinking of when you
Yeah,
think of water. So
yeah. I don't know. I really hope that this is not true, and this is just kind of holding the place for another IP, which I believe I had mentioned on the TikTok I made about the spec map. I'm pretty sure I did because I don't know, man. Another like 2 years later, we're gonna bring Exorcist back. That's big Michael Myers energy, Hollywood, and I don't love that. So I hope
Yeah,
not.
it's very dumb. It's very unless they pull a miracle and make the most original Exorcist house you've ever seen, where it's you have only one room, like one or two rooms at most of inside the bedroom, and the rest is something completely different. Then I'd be like, then I give it a pass. But if it's
Hmm.
literally just the same shit again,
Yep.
especially after having it in 2021, due to the fact that an IP pulled out is the reason you had it. It wasn't
Right.
because you wanted it either. It just because something pulled out, so you're just like, I guess we'll use Exorcist. Did an IP pull out this year? They're like, oh, I guess you got to pull out an Exorcist again. Let's go to the back. Let's pull out the Reagan mannequins.
God. Oh, can we not? I don't want to talk about Exorcist anymore. I really hope that this is not true. There's so much potential in this event being like an amazing one, and I really don't want that to knock it down.
Now, do you want to? Because
Yes.
there's not much else we can talk about Exorcist. I mean, I guess the lower tent location would be a new place for it, which could change the way or the order of the rooms, but or the size of them. But let's move on to the next one. Do you want to take this?
Of course I do. So H7, which is Curious George Tent 1, is that the one that started construction already? One of them did.
Um, it was the one where Halloween was. I don't remember if that's
I
one or
don't know.
two, but it's one of
Whatever.
these.
One of these next two has already started construction, but this one doesn't have words. It just has like a clown emoji, picture of a clown. Now for me, and I think that I mean there's been other rumors, but I think we got to talk about this now. To me, that's Hollywood Harry. Obviously, that's like Hollywood's original icon.
So let I don't mean to butt in, but I have
No, it's
to
fine. It's a
because you
big
just
butt.
because my last piece of news and rumors was the last legacy clue that was solved, and that was Hollywood getting a Hollywood Harry original house. And here's the but to that rumor is, at least according to Legacy, it's not happening. That it was pulled or it changed, or maybe rumors were mixed up. But apparently, maybe it was supposed to happen and then it's not happening now.
Yeah.
Which I want to know your thoughts on that because you got to see Hollywood Harry, as did I, for the first time last year.
I love him. He is so funny and he doesn't really talk, he just kind of makes noises. Um and I don't know if it's normal, but for us while we were waiting because we did the RIP tour last year, while we were waiting for our tram to take us down to the tent houses, he came and did like a picture op with us and like interacted
Wow.
with us and we have like some of the my favorite pictures, honestly, that I've taken at the event where he like put the knife up to our throats. We did like individual pictures, group pictures. Like he was so funny. He told me he liked my hair in his like weird, creepy way. I loved him so much. And I think like a whole house based on him would be really cool because they've had what 2 or 3 terror trams now where he's been the focal point,
Mm-hmm.
including last year. And it really worked well, even with the Nope Us section. Like it was very like a one act, like a first act and then a second act with like a break in the middle. So it was kind of like the Blumhouse house, honestly. And I don't know how you felt about that, Jonathan, but I really liked the Hollywood Harry segment. And I just think he's kind of like a sick fuck and a whole house like sideshowy because he has this whole story where he lives on the back lot. I think tying it into the event and the history of the back lot would be really cool. Like, and if it's in a tent, it's down there in the back lot pretty much. Like, there's just so much
Mm-hmm.
potential, I feel like. So, how do you feel about this?
So going off to like my experience with the seeing Hollywood Harry for the first time, as did you, I agree. I think he's an amazing character, whether he's talking in the video or he's not interacting. I think he's funny. I have a very hot take, and is that I for right now I kind of like him better than Jack. I think he's just I think
Jack.
he's I just enjoy him more. Uh, I think if I have more experience with Jack in the future, that will change. I think Hollywood
Right.
Harry's very much like a one trick pony. Like what he's doing now is what he will be forever. And I'm sure, and compared to Jack, who I think can evolve. But right now, I just kind of had more fun with Hollywood Harry than I did with Jack. But I love him. His segment in the tram stood on its own compared to I mean, the second segment of the train, you had this whole built set with all these like this weird, interesting story mix of two films
Hmm.
and like all these effects and stuff, and yet the first section that takes place, which the first section, which is basically the segment for every terror tram ever, it's the same location of every terror tram ever, stood on its own, was fun, was interesting, made me want to go on the tram again, which we did. We did it twice, which
Hmm.
like I was never thinking I'd do the tram twice, like on a 1 day trip to Hollywood. But I loved his segment so much that I wanted to. Um, so short, long story short, I love Hollywood Harry, and I think that if we get his house, um, it would be one of my favorite houses. And if it has been scrapped for something else, it would make me very, very sad because I think he's just such an interesting character. But I'd also get why, since you had him last year, maybe you wait a couple more years before pulling him out again.
That's true. He's also kind of like their crutch. Not like their crutch. That's bad. But like the thing that they pull out when they need something to be replaced, or like they need a terror tram or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a trick to have. So I mean, kind of like Orlando, they always got something just in case. So
They do.
it sucks, but I again, I can't wait to see what's replacing this then, because that's true. Then we've got two on here, or three possibly, that are gonna change.
I know what it's gonna be. I got a leaked rumor
Oh yeah.
from my friend in creative. Um, they said it's gonna be The Exorcist again. It's gonna just be shaped. It's gonna be in the Curious George tent. So we'll have two. We're gonna have two houses. One
Mm.
in H6 will be The Exorcist in the lower lot tent. Then in H7, it will just be the same house fitted for the Curious George tent one.
All right. Oh goodness, God, I hope there's less Exorcists this year. Um,
Impossible.
than that.
You can't have enough exorcists.
Jonathan, I know you, and I know that you are dying to talk about this next one. Like you
Yes.
really are. No one knows about this one yet, so
No
top
one
secret.
knows. I don't think anyone actually knows this house exists.
This is the first time I'm hearing about it, honestly.
Yeah, this was Legacy and Horror Night Neighbors don't even like. This is something that's like it's on our map on our HN365 map that's filled with Hellblock references and Grease 2 scare zones. But no. This is for H8, which is the Curious George tent 2. Which once again, these tents are big. They're big tents. They're not just like they have room to fit some really intense sets in there. Um, but it's Chucky, which has been announced for both coasts a while ago. This is a potential location for it. I think it would make sense. It's a big enough location where I think you can work the like you have enough room to do like puppet mechanics if you're using puppets or other things. I think I think the location makes a lot of sense, and I'm just really excited for Hollywood's take on Chucky. I know we haven't really talked about this, and when we've talked about Chucky before, I feel like we only dive into Orlando. Like what could Orlando's be, you know? But like we never really talk about what could Hollywood's be. And the answer is I think it's gonna be worse. I'm excited for it. But as excited for I as excited for it as I am because I just love the character of Chucky and I love that he's getting a house of his own. And I even loved his segment on like the escalator, the big escalator last year. He just was talking. He was the safety spiel. There was one where there was one line where I think like Chucky goes like, and don't like he was like, and don't push strollers down the escalator. And then Jennifer Tilly like said something like, "Oh, I already did that" or something like that. Like it was good. I did not say that joke well at all, but it was funny in person. I promise. But I the main thing that I'm worried about Hollywoods is that I don't think they're going to get Chucky right. Which when the name of the house is Chucky, that's probably the most important part. So if they don't get Chucky right, I
Yeah.
feel like the house falls, no matter how good everything else is.
Yeah, I feel like I've talked about Chucky so much that I'm already like, ugh, have we not had it yet? I'm like, not that I'm not excited. I'm just like, it's kind of like Beetlejuice at this point where we've been talking about it for so fucking long that I'm like, oh, all right, I guess. I do think it's going to be worse, though. Like you said, I think that's a very fair assumption to make.
Yeah, I'm. I will never take like I will never be against anything Chucky coming, no matter how bad or good it is. And for the record, I don't think it's gonna be bad. I
Hmm.
just think it's gonna be worse, which is usually the norm for Hollywood houses. Not in a bad way. It's just difference between coasts.
Yeah.
Um, I am excited to see differences. I think they have the potential to have a lot of improv in
Hmm.
Hollywoods, which can work really well. And I'm not just talking Chucky. I assume the Chucky stuff will be recorded previously by Brad Dourif, but I'm talking Tiffany and
Hmm.
um, and other characters from the show that I don't really want to say, depending on spoilers. But if they are live actors and they have the ability to improvise, they're not just stuck with voice lines. You can have some really good interactions in there, depending on how the house is laid out. I think the best part about the Chucky show is its comedy, and I mean the Chucky series as a whole is its comedy. And if you had improv in there, it would make for some like real, I mean, just really interesting interactions between those characters.
Yeah, my only hesitation about improv is Hollywood got rid of Chucky's and Sold Emporium because it went too far.
Yeah, it
Um,
did. It did.
so if someone is not gonna do improv, it might be Hollywood, unfortunately.
Well,
Uh,
that's
so
why I think the Chucky stuff will be pre-recorded. Like the Chucky
yeah,
stuff will be
oh,
Brad
that's
Dourif.
fair. You did say that, like Tiffany and stuff like that. So kind of like a, I don't know her name, a Janine. Actually, I do from Ghostbusters. Look at me. She's not like she's not one of the Ghostbusters, so she's not someone that you would expect to have the live mic, but she was the right choice to have the live mic in that house for
Exactly.
Orlando because I don't know if Hollywood got to improv. I don't remember.
I don't think Hollywood Improv last year. I know with Texas Chainsaw. No, I don't think they actually talked and improved.
No, I
I think
think
they were able to act and sort of act in a interesting way, depending on how they felt in the room.
mhm.
But I don't think they were able to actually speak lines.
Yeah, and I don't think their Janine in Ghostbusters was able to talk. I don't think she had a live mic. I think it was
You know who
pre-recorded.
did?
Who?
In the queue, they had Louis Tully.
They did, yeah. And he was he handing stuff out? He was like that was the no, was he handing like
Yeah,
stuff out?
he was the password guy.
That's what it was. That was the last password house, right?
Um, yeah, it was.
2030 or
That was
30.
29. Yeah.
Not it's not 29, Jonathan.
God damn it,
It's
2019.
2019. As I called 2021 30 again.
Mm.
But so yeah, I yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. We've,
Chucky.
like you said, we talked enough about Chucky. Chucky will come and he will he will hopefully say the F word. That's what Chucky has to do. That's his whole thing.
Yeah, hey, we'll find out soon. I got to talk about my baby, this next one
Mm.
that everyone yells at me on TikTok about. H9, which is the other soundstage location, which really makes me believe that this is an IP now. Like, and I know we had brought it up before because it didn't say original on the Orlando map, but Guitar Lightning Bolt is on the Hollywood map as well. And it's in a soundstage. And like we said, that's normally reserved for big IPs. So, what's this mean?
So if you think about it,
Oh God, you're gonna tell me
lightning
something
bolts are
dumb.
like spiritual, right? Sometimes people think they could be spiritual.
I have
Um,
never heard that in my life, but
No,
keep
but like
going,
acts
please.
of don't haven't you heard things of like if people believe in like a higher being that like if the higher being's mad they throw lightning bolts at you, or like Zeus, like throw lightning bolts at you. So you have like some like spiritual stuff, right? And the guitar is like famous music, like famous music. So if you think about it, The Exorcist has both of those things.
Um, okay. Um, I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't know. I don't know anything about this map. Um, right. Uh, so
I have to continue my shtick of every house is just gonna end up being The Exorcist.
so you have H on the East Coast and the Exorcist on the West.
Exactly.
Well, you're
Um,
that's
but,
impressive, Jonathan.
but you did mention, right, that this is probably an IP because it's
Yeah,
getting a soundstage,
absolutely.
and it's probably a big IP because it's getting a soundstage. Um,
Yeah.
so would I know people have been speculating Metallica. Would Metallica be that big IP that needs a soundstage, or would it need to be something bigger? Or does Metallica just need more lights in general for it to work?
Um, if it was Metallica, they 100% would be in a soundstage. And I
Hmm.
would fully expect maybe not all the marketing to revolve around them, but they would probably be like below, like, I don't know, The Last of Us. It would be like Last of Us Metallica. Because as much as like Metallica is one of the biggest bands in the world, I wouldn't say that 2023 is their prime popularity.
No.
Like time for that, especially for marketing. It's going to bring a lot of older people, I think, if that is the case, that that's the IP that Guitar Lightning Bolt means. And I know people are screaming at us right now that it's not Metallica, you idiots. It's Stranger Things because Eddie, and I know, I hear you, but is Stranger Things coming? We know that the Netflix relationship, we've talked about it every week. But I feel like anytime we talk about this one, we have to talk about Stranger Things.
See, the only like I think I brought it up in a previous episode, and the only reason why I think like it could be a possibility
Hmm.
is because of the legacy comment that you mentioned earlier
Yeah.
on this episode, where you said, "What if the big IP?" Which I mean, we're assuming that means The Last of Us because that is the big IP. There is a bigger IP than The Last of Us, and we were speculating like, what could that be? That ain't Metallica. It's not.
Yeah.
And once again, the guitar lightning bolt, it could be a thing like the anchor where it's completely different than what you're looking at like
Mhm.
right now. We can see guitar and anchor, but I mean, we can see guitar and lightning bolt, but it just be something completely different than music, than ride lightning, than anything like that.
Mhm.
Um, uh, but if it was Stranger Things, that would fit Legacy's uh, thing instantly. And I can't believe I forgot to mention this in the news and rumors. Um, but this is probably a better time than any to mention it. There was one more thing Legacy said on the Horror Night Nightmare server, and that was that new rumors are coming out now, and whoever has rumors or new rumors are happening that are pointing to this year's lineup being incredibly divisive. I don't know if that meant just Orlando or just Hollywood, but they also share a lot of the same stuff, including Blumhouse, Last of Us, assuming probably the monsters is going to be end up being the same thing. Um, let's see, uh, Chucky and Guitar Lightning Bolt. Um, None of these properties right now, the ones that are named, make like besides I don't like none of the none of the ones that I named or anything like that are divisive. Everyone wants Blumhouse. Everyone like because of Megan. Everyone wants The Last of Us. Everyone
Mhm.
wants Universal Monsters, and everyone was fine with Chucky. So what the hell is this guitar lightning bolt that's going to end up like either obviously clues can change or whatever, but like is this the thing that's going to be like divisive among HHN fans, or is there another IP
Yeah.
that's coming that could end up being IP original that's coming that can end up being divisive?
Yeah, I mean, if it is, let's entertain the Stranger Things conversation. I mean, I don't think we should shoot it down automatically anymore because I think anything's possible. Honestly, I will
Mm-hmm.
always be in that vein. Until Universal announces it, anything's possible. If it is Stranger Things, is that divisive? Do you think that the community is really going to be like, well, fuck this year? Or
See,
like,
that's the thing too. I don't think it's divisive because, well, I mean, there are a certain amount of people who go, "Oh, because Stranger Things coming." is coming, that means the whole clientele of HHN changes and everything
Mhm.
changes and whatever. I only started going during 28 and 29, so I don't know how like crowds were before that, but I didn't think that HHN like was when Stranger Things came like the whole crowd turned to young children or anything like that. Like
Right.
all the people on Facebook claim that when Stranger Things comes, like, oh my god, all these
No.
children are now in the event. Oh my god, like no.
And
Um,
like I only went to 27 obviously, but like that's the only year I have that you don't. But I will say it was maybe like a little older in 27, but it wasn't like what everyone screams that it was. There were still kids running around, there were still teenagers there. Everyone went. Saw was there and Saw was super relevant in 2017 because the new like the Jigsaw movie was coming out. So like there were still kids there. But in 28, I mean, there were a couple more kids because of Stranger Things. I'll give them that. But this year also might do the same thing with Megan. So shut up. It
mhm.
happens every year. Not you. Shut up. Everyone else shut up. Sorry, as you were saying.
No, no, no. Yeah, and so I mean that could be a reason for the divisiveness. It also could be two and three was not a good house on either coast. I know Hollywood's 2 and 3 is considered one of the worst houses they've ever made, and Orlando's 2 and 3, while not one of the worst houses they ever made, not great, not a great house by any sense of any definition of the word. So that could make it divisive. People going like 2 and 3 was terrible, so that means
Mm,
automatically 4 would be terrible, even though that is most likely is not the case, considering just be one season and not a mesh of two.
4 is so dark too compared to
Mm-hmm.
the other seasons that like I feel like it's gonna set it already sets itself up for more success just based on that.
It absolutely does.
So, ooh, I don't know. I don't know, man. Stranger Things, what?
I thought of one thing that isn't related to Stranger Things that also could lean up to like being divisive. So we had that theory earlier that maybe since the Japanese original that was shared is gone. Maybe it was replaced by an IP at some point. Because once again, why do you replace something like that if it's you don't have like just like all right, throw an IP or whatever? It just doesn't make much sense, at least in my head, to like take something like that away for both coasts if you're not just going to give an IP to both coasts. And that would make it Blumhouse, which is one, Last of Us 2, Monsters 3, Japanese original that maybe is an IP for Chucky 5, and assuming Guitar Lightning Bolt is an IP, that's six. That's six IPs, which for Hollywood is. I mean, if we fill them in, like Hollywood would have more at the end of the day. But like, if we're taking these shared ones and taking them to Orlando, that's six IPs for Orlando. Something we have not had since like HHN 29, where in the past years in 30 and 31, it's been more original heavy. So could that end up being the divisive thing? Like maybe we might there's a chance we might enter a more IP type year than we've been used to the past 2 years or something.
That could be true. I mean, that would be I would call that divisive in the community because I think a lot of the and like not just on gatekeeping, but like diehards, and I don't mean that like casual fans aren't also HHN obsessed, but I mean like the crazy people that are like following permits and stuff like that, you know, maybe us. But I think that the crazies might find something like that really divisive where like if they love originals like you know like I do, I'm always going to be more excited for the originals than the IPs unless it's something that's like my IP. Um
Mm-hmm.
like Beetlejuice was or something like that. But that could be really divisive for some people and then like the general crowd might be obsessed with that because they look at this and go, "Oh, I know exactly what these houses are." Instead of like last year, for example, Descendants of Destruction. If you're not an HHN fan and you don't research the event going in, what's that house to you? You don't know what that means. So,
Exactly.
like this might be something like experimental that they're trying to see if like this brings even more people in.
I mean, we've proved it works.
Yeah.
Like I mean, 29 was. I mean, the crowds in 29 absolutely insane. It was not just because of Stranger Things, like because of Ghostbusters too. It was because of Killer Clowns. It was because of Us, which is
Hmm.
a crazy big movie at the time. Like the IPs were there were so many IPs in 29. And it was crowded. Like for when I went, I only went like 3 or 4 days, but it was crowded every single day I went. Like
Mm-hmm.
wall to wall people. 31 I feel like was a little bit calmer with that. At least in the beginning of the event, I didn't think it was as bad as something like 29 or 28. So maybe that's something. Maybe the team or maybe Universal, maybe or something went like, all right, like we had the two original heavy years, not really due our fault. It was mostly due to people pulling out, but we had the original heavy years. Now we need crowds back, like insane crowds back. So now let's
Mm-hmm.
just have another year like we had 29.
Yeah, that's really true. And I think that 29 is a good example because it was IP heavy, but even like IPs that people weren't necessarily excited for, like House of a Thousand Corpses, were really well received at the end of the event.
Mm-hmm.
So gambling on something like that kind of worked out for them. My kind of thing is like looking at this, and we still have one more to talk about, obviously, but this is the last house. Is if we have all of these IPs, do you think we're also going to see an IP zone, like in Orlando specifically? I don't know if Hollywood really does IP zones, but
Hollywood has done them in the past. I know they actually had a Chucky one that looked awful,
hmm,
but
yeah.
um, they have had IP zones in the past. But knowing how zones have been done the past couple of years, they always seem like an afterthought in Hollywood, and I'm sure it's just going to be like, what costumes do we have in the back that can make sense
Hmm.
for like for this zone? Because I love Hollywood, I loved last year's Hollywood, and I think their zones were very scary. Those actors chased me throughout the entire zone. It was bad. I was not having a good time. I mean, I was, but like they were ready to traumatize me. But if I'm talking about the actual zones, they were not good. They were not thought. They didn't seem like they were very thought out. It didn't seem like there was much to them. It seemed like you could get better zones literally anywhere else.
Yeah.
So I zones will never be anything I'm excited for in Hollywood, even if the concept sounds really cool, like in the description, because I know what's going to happen is I'm going to go there and then I'll be like, oh, there's not much here. Okay, and then just do the houses instead. I forgot what the original question was about. It was about IP zones, right?
Yeah, because like it looks like we're going so IP heavy with the houses. Like, do you think we're going to see IPs in any zones on either coast? Honestly.
For Hollywood, I don't think so because I think Hollywood's always IP heavy. Like every year, it's IP
Hmm.
heavy. And it's seeming like if you're taking out the if you're taking out Hollywood Harry and you're taking out the Japanese original, let's say those both are replaced by IPs. Uh, you know, in a world where they are, that means only one original, which is like crazy. But like Hollywood's always been like original IP heavy, but the zones haven't necessarily reflected that. But Orlando, as much as I don't want them to have an IP zone, because I feel like the zones they had in 31 and the connection they had in 31 and how they tied the overall thing together was absolute perfection. And I've said this before, but having like Cocaine Bear in a random zone like would have completely thrown everything off. I could see it, and I don't want to, but I think it's very well much a possibility for Orlando.
Yeah, that's and we have IP zones. I mean, last year was the first year we haven't had one in a while, right?
Mhm. And it was
So
great.
it really was. But not to say I really liked Hellbilly in 29. I really liked that zone. Um, so I know not everybody did, but
I
uh,
loved Hellbilly. Hellbilly was one of my favorite. It is like on my top three, like top two zones of all time. No, probably 31 had a lot of good ones, so like probably top five
mhm.
somewhere.
I
But
would probably say the same.
was Hellbilly Deluxe 80s? No, right?
No, nine, no.
Like it didn't fit the theme at all. It was just a good zone. Like I loved
Yeah.
it, but it definitely felt completely out of place.
But I don't think it felt out of place because when you think of the 80s, there was always like a hard rock, like metal element. And I think that
Okay.
if you kind of like suspend belief, like of the era that that album actually came out and just kind of like accept it as like a genre that was popular in the 80s. It fit.
I can see that. So like how you can listen to weekend music and be
Hmm.
like it came out now, but it sounds a lot like the 80s, so I'm gonna pretend it's from the 80s.
Yeah, that's really what it is. We're gonna act like it's from the 80s when it
Okay,
definitely
I
was.
can see that. I can see that.
But yeah, I don't know because I feel like if we're gonna have so many houses that are IP based or just IPs, the zones can be completely original and they can keep experimenting and kind of knocking it out of the park with that. On the Orlando side, I can't speak for Hollywood because I don't really remember loving any of the streets last year there.
Oh, that was your first experience with
I
Hollywood
can't really
streets.
think of anything besides the one that was outside La Llorona, which I don't remember what that was.
I don't remember what it was either, but I can tell you what it was. It was a
Yeah,
copy and paste of the Scream Queens
but it was like Urban
zone.
Legends or something.
But literally the same exact setup.
Hmm.
Exact. And I was
Scream
so
Queens with a
sad.
Z.
Yeah, the Z. That's the difference there. But I was so sad because I walked last year since 2021 was like a pandemic year and it wasn't even supposed to happen. I gave Zones a very much a pass, and I was very pleasantly surprised by Scream Queens. Like, wow, this is really cool. It has some cool sets and videos and stuff, and I can see that this is where the zones went. And then this year, when it's like, all right, you have no excuse now because you're making intense facades from every house or whatever. And then all the zones are the same exact thing, including the one outside La Llorona that was just Scream Queens. I'm like, all right, I've given up on you, Hollywood Zones. I'm done.
Yeah, I don't remember any. Oh, I do remember it wasn't even like a zone, but it was like that bathroom area that had like one scare actor and then the crow would kind of go through there. The
Yes, it
big
was
crow.
the Haunted Forest.
Yeah, that and like they were like going after people over there. It was
Mm-hmm.
scary. But I don't remember any other zones. Like that's the thing. So I guess there's only three, so I guess I'm only missing one. So well, whatever.
Before we get to the Terror Tram, we should say one more thing about this map. It says it's a show, and I think if I'm looking at this map correctly, which I very much could not be, it says it's an Animal Actors, but Horror Night Nightmares on Discord have confirmed that it's not obviously not an Animal Actors because Animal Actors is not going to exist anymore. Um, I'm sure on the next map or the next couple maps, it will be moved to its actual location if there is going to be a show this year.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, let's get on to the fun stuff now.
Oh yeah, you wanna lead this one in?
You want me to lead it, or do you want you?
Yeah, yeah. I already talked about Guitar Lightning Bolt.
Oh, that's true. That's true. So the Terror Tram. John Murdy already confirmed it's happening. We're getting a Terror Tram this year. What could it be? Well, right now we don't know at all. The only thing we know, according to this map, is that it's rumored to be themed to the most generic thing possible: celebrities. That could account for 100 different things, like thousands of different things. Whatever it could account for, like a horror celebrity that's like a celebrity that's known for horror. It could account for, I don't know, wrestling people. It could account for people like Jordan Peele, who is a celebrity but also like makes movies. This can account for, I think, a wide variety of people, and it's very hard for me to even think about what direction to go with this because the category is so vague. What do you think? What do you think about the Terror Tram being themed to celebrities?
I didn't even consider the fact that it could be WWE until you just said it.
Oh,
And
I thought that'd be like one of the first things you
I
think
don't
of.
shut up about the possibility of WWE and HHN. So, oh my god, now you've got me all hype. My first thing that I thought of was Jordan Peele, like you said, like he obviously had the Nope and Us section, and that's the set and everything, and that kind of makes the most sense. And I think he's obviously done enough that we can do a whole tram based around everything, and then
Mm-hmm.
tie in the set and everything. But I like thinking more outside of the box. I think a Terror Tram for WWE would be really fucking cool. You could have like wrestlers like out in the War of the World set, like just like wrecking each other in like a ring or something. Like I don't even know how you would make that work.
They don't
But
even try
you,
to make the sets work either. It's just like, oh yeah, the wrestlers went to the World of War sets, and they're just
Jonathan, I don't. You're not a. Have you ever watched wrestling before?
no.
So th- there's no rules. Like there's rules, but like the type of matches that they come up with, they just do whatever they want. There's like exploding barbed wire matches where like
Mm.
the ring just has some explosives on the outside that go off. There's like buried alive. There's matches where like you have to throw someone in an ambulance, you have to bury them alive, throw them in a casket. Like there are so many different things that they make up whatever they want. So like if someone's like gimmick is like, "Oh, I'm a spooky guy," you have like a spooky guy death match. Like that's how wrestling is.
Well, then it can fit very well for the Terror Tram if they end up
Literally.
doing it.
And like if you this is the first episode you're listening to, I meant all of that with love. I love wrestling. If you've listened to all of our episodes, you're like, shut up, Jazz. I'm sick of it. Joke's on you. I'm going to WrestleMania at the end of this month, so it's just gonna get worse.
Mm.
I don't know, but yeah, I know that there was the Machine Gun Kelly rumor, but I've told you, Jonathan, he's in hot water right now for like allegedly abusing Megan Fox.
Oh my god.
So I would hope that that's not the route we're going for
You
Hollywood.
know, that's a scary thing to base your Terror Tram around celebrities because of that. I mean, that stuff, right? Like
Hmm.
celebrities every week, I feel like they get into the hot water and scandals and like just off, like things every week. The things are getting pulled up by people and news and whatever. So when you theme your Terror Tram around a celebrity, you probably want to pick one that you are the most confident that stuff isn't going to happen to. And maybe that's the route we should be thinking, like regarding this, like people that HHN would trust to not have any problems between the period of concept to the period of execution.
Yeah, it's risky.
Very risky.
Someone said the Kardashians, the scariest celebrities of all.
Mm.
I can't remember who told me that, but I was cackling. It was so funny.
Oh my god. On our Instagram, every single comment when we posted the Hollywood spec map and said, "What do you think?" Every single comment except one, every single one. This is not about the Terror Trim. It's not about it. I should have. It's completely off topic. Was just, why is the Exorcist coming? I'm so
Did
tired of the Exorcist. I hate the Exorcist so much. Get it away. Like it was every single comment was no Exorcist, and I'm like my tweet, it was the same thing as, why is Exorcist coming? Why the hell is this here? Like nobody wants this. I don't know anyone who says like, yay, Exorcist is back. I think even the general public who just go to horror nights once a year are probably like, I already saw this. Why the fuck is this back?
Oh, I don't blame him, but yeah, I don't have anything else to say about the Terror Tram. Are we done with the
No.
spec map?
I think we've covered everything. I'm sure next spec map will have a lot more stuff, including hopefully scare zones,
Yeah.
and shows and fill-ins for whatever's getting replaced here, which we have a good idea is probably Hollywood Harry and
Yeah.
Japanese creatures.
I'm sorry, is
Um,
Flight of the Hippogriff actually open during their HHN? I just saw that on the map.
is it?
It says it on the map. Is Flight of the Hippogriff open during HHN?
Well, I know what I got to do when we go out to
Damn, you gotta get that
California.
coaster credit, Jonathan.
Exactly. I got
Oh
to
my god.
see the animatronic hippogriff and be like, that's the best part of the ride. All
Don't
right.
forget to bow to him. Oh my god. Regardless of what is coming, honestly, I love Hollywood's event and I'm really excited to see what's end
Absolutely.
up.
It's a treat every year, especially. I mean, especially because Orlando is special. Orlando's what we talk about 100%, like almost 99% of the podcast, and it means everything to us. But living here, at least for me, it definitely is like when I used to go to horror nights only like once or like twice in a year. It definitely was um like, oh my god, a once in like this is a one time experience, and it's sort of like people who go to Disney once a year, and it's like, oh my god, like this is crazy. When you go to Disney multiple times, in the year, you still like it, but you're like, oh well, I like it a lot, but I also go here all the time, so it's not as special. Hollywood, since it is in California, we only go once. it is definitely a it feels like you're going to Disney for like for one time a year. It's like, okay, here's my one trip to Hollywood. I'm gonna make the most of it. And it's definitely a very unique experience compared to being a local and being able to go to Horror Nights Orlando almost every day of the week.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
All
do we want to
right.
move on to voicemails? Which, by the way, guys, if you have any thoughts on the Hollywood spec map, even if it's just why is the Exorcist here, you can leave us a voicemail at, let me pull it up, 407 906 4134, and just tell us all about it, or just tell us about anything else. That
Yeah.
we're open to anything really.
Any other rumors? Anything you've heard? We want to hear
Rumors,
it.
yeah, rumors, opinions about Horror Nights 31, or what you want the future, you want 32 to be, all that stuff. Let us know, because now we are going about to start playing voicemails that you guys sent us from before this episode recorded. So,
Yeah.
uh,
All right. We got a first one here from a returning caller that we've heard from before. So, all right.
Hey guys, this is El Churro Guapo, your friend from Southwest Texas. I have a really good theory that I want to share with you guys regarding the Phantom and Dracula house. So what I've been noticing lately is that when it comes to the monsters houses, they've been doing a lot of differences and tweaking things here and there. You know, we had a winner every time last year with Legends Collide, where it was Mummy or Wolfman, you know the story. So I'm thinking that this story is going to be a direct sequel to The Bride of Frankenstein Lives. If you remember correctly, the bride takes great pleasure in killing the brides of Dracula because, one, they're terrorizing the community. She's tired of them killing innocent lives, and she takes pleasure in killing them because that blood is what nourished Frankenstein, her hubby, to come back to life after she did all her projects. So now Dracula, low on brides because they're all getting killed by the bride and Frankie, needs a new wife. So that's where Christine, the love of the life of the Phantom, comes in, and I think is going to be the centerpiece of the story of the two. The Phantom is going to do everything he can to protect Christine while the Phantom's trying to seduce her and bring her to be one of his new brides. And Phantom can't let that happen because he knows that if the Dracula takes her, he's never going to get her back. So I think we're going to have another Winter House. And I think that's going to be the story driving them through. I guess if you want, you can link Legends Collide to this story in a sense that, okay, this is a business venture that went sour. You know, we see him die a couple times, but, you know, I think they just missed his heart. You can play that off very easily. They missed his heart just vaguely, and he just got injured and was able to fly away. But I think that's a separate story in its own universe, and I really believe this is going to be a direct sequel regarding the Bride of Frankenstein. So linking, I think, because the Bride of Frankenstein Lives featured Gilman, I think somewhere in there, in this house, we might get another Easter egg. I think maybe Gilman again, or maybe the Hunchback. But I think it works out. If you want to take time places, you know, you did the late 1800s leading into the 1900s and World War I. You know, that's the same time frame, I guess, around where Bride of Frankenstein is taking place at. So that all kind of works in. Lastly, I want to point out I'm focusing on Hollywood.
Oh no. It keeps doing this. I'm so sorry, Churro Guapo. If the voicemail is longer than 3 minutes, our voicemail inbox automatically cuts it off. So again, I'm so sorry. But Jonathan, you want to talk about that theory he has?
it's a very interesting theory, and I mean, I think it would be cool. I think it would be cool connecting the Bride of Frankenstein Lives to any house, any future monsters house. Because I mean, the Bride of Frankenstein Lives was just a feat in storytelling, and being able to continue that in some way would be truly amazing. I love the theory, and I think the idea of the main battle between the two, if it is just them two, we talked about today, maybe it isn't, but we'll see. But the battle between the two, revolving around Christine, uh, makes a lot of sense because what other reason would they both be fighting? Like there, I don't think there is any other any. I think any reason the Phantom is going to be fighting anybody else, it would have to do with Christine in some way or form.
Mhm.
So I really do like your theory, and I mean we'll see what happens when the house actually comes out. What do you think, Jess?
I mean, I've kind of discussed not a similar theory, but something along the same vein where like, Christine definitely gets involved if we are using Drac in this, and you did say Hunchback in there, and like I said
Hmm?
before in the episode, Hunchback and Phantom. Um, so I kind of
Mm-hmm.
like it. I don't know how Gilman works in there, but I would love to see him. And if this is a continuation of Bride, that was one of my favorite monster houses, obviously. Um, I kind of like your theory there. I don't know if they're going to go with that, obviously, because that house, we saw it twice, and maybe we don't need a sequel to Bride, unfortunately. But it's a cool theory. I'm excited, regardless, honestly, for this house.
Gilman will be the Anubis. Just appear at the end and be
Oh,
like,
God.
"I win."
I mean, if he does, and that's what we go into 33 with, let's go. But it sucks the last time we saw Gilman, he was just in a little glass casket.
Yeah, and feel free to call again for that last bit because I think before you cut off, think I heard you say Hollywood. Uh, so that's definitely like the topic we're talking about today. So feel free
Yeah.
to call again and like let us know what that second portion was because I'm super interested.
Yeah, please. I'm again sorry it cut you off. It just automatically does it. And we don't really listen to the voicemails ahead of time because we want to give you guys instant reactions. We'll kind of like screen a little bit, but we don't know if it cuts you guys off until we're recording. So but thank you for calling in. Thank you for listening. I know you called in for the 100th, so it's nice to hear your voice again. And we have one more. I'm not sure who this is from, so let's find out.
Hi, this is Pumpkin Gamer from the Discord, and with the release of like the Five Nights at Freddy's stuff, I was wondering if you guys see, obviously it being used in the future, but also like, do you think that Five Nights at Freddy's would be something that it would be like Blumhouse presents and it's just a standalone house, or do you think they would for sure like pigeonhole it in with another house? Because I've really been like thinking about that, and I feel like Five Nights at Freddy's as a franchise could really build like a solid single standalone house, but like I don't see Blumhouse going anywhere. So, yep, just wanted to know what you guys thought about that.
Well, thank you so much for calling. And I mean to respond to your question, I think if we had Five Nights at Freddy's, whenever like whenever I'd assume we would, no matter what, whenever the movie comes out, just because of our really good relationship with Blumhouse, and I'm sure HHN would absolutely want to have Five Nights at Freddy's, um, like because it is such a big game franchise and everyone knows it. I'm sure the movie's gonna do very well. I mean, and for that reason, I think it does end up being a standalone. I think it's a big enough property that it doesn't need to be mixed in with anything. And like I mean, that's it. I don't think it needs to be mixed in with anything. I think the film slash if they use the games, it definitely has enough content to fill a whole house. The only thing I can think of why there could be a possibility of it not being a standalone is the costumes, because
Mhm.
I assume those costumes whenever if we ever get a house based on that would be like incredibly expensive. Like it would be a lot to to make and to pull off correctly. And I would think the only reason they wouldn't fill a full house is if they said, all right, well, these it costs too much to actually have a full house of these characters, so we'll give you like a half or something like that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I do think that it's inevitable we're going to get Five Nights at Freddy's because this Blumhouse relationship is obviously really strong. If this is now what the fourth Blumhouse that we're getting this year, third,
One,
fourth,
two, yeah, it's the fourth.
So I mean, the Five Nights at Freddy's film is currently being made. What do we have like a release? Is it next year or is it 2025? Do we even know?
I think it's next year.
So I mean, if it's next year in the summer or earlier, I think it's 100% going to be coming to HHN.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that has been a consistent, huge game, like for years now. I mean, what, 10 years or more? I don't even know when the first one came out, but I remember it was like a cultural phenomenon, and I never played it, but even I watched like people play it on YouTube. Everybody watched that shit, and now the movie's coming out, and like the kids that grew up with it, they're getting older, and they're still like younger kids that love this property. And if this is the thing that gets them into horror, awesome. So I think that it's inevitable. I think we're definitely going to get it. I hope that because it is such a big property that it would be a standalone. And it could just be, Blumhouse presents Five Nights at Freddy's. And maybe like the facade is the Blumhouse store. Or we go back to like what the first couple Blumhouse iterations were, where you enter into a Blumhouse film and then you're in the film. So maybe it's something like that and it's presented that way. But I do think those costumes are going to be expensive, like you said. And I don't know how they get around that. And if we don't get Stranger Things this year and it comes next year, I think Stranger Things would trump Five Nights at Freddy's. So that kind of worries me.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, as big as Five Nights at Freddy's is, I do think there are plenty of properties that will go above it in its current state. I think if we had if there was a movie in a house right when it hit and it became the insane cultural phenomenon it would be the headliner like in any year. I think now it's still it's still incredibly popular and absolutely like popular enough for Horror Nights to want to make a house out of it. But I do think it's not at the place it was now that it was back then, that like other things will be able to top it, I think, pretty easily. Like, not that, it won't be as big as it could have been if it was, earlier. I mean, depending on how well the movie does, the movie could make a humongous resurgence for it again.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited either way. I do think that it's not out of the realm though, like for them to spend money on it. Cause like look at when Ghostbusters came, it wasn't the headline house. Stranger Things technically was. So it could be something that does fall to like the second spot, and that's not a negative. It just might do that, unfortunately. But if we get Stranger Things and Five Nights at Freddy in the same year, oh my god, those lines are gonna be fucking long, you guys. Whew.
Express, gotta use Express that year. Oh my god.
Oh my
You're
god.
not gonna walk in those houses without Express.
That's okay. I barely did Stranger Things Volume 2. But Pumpkin Gamer, thank you. One, for being in our Discord and being so active in there. I always see you chatting. And also for calling in. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
That, I think, is all we have for now, Jonathan. That was an episode.
That was an episode. We were saying maybe we should add a segment because we didn't think it would take that long.
If it's me and Jonathan, we gonna talk. But I will say we don't have anything set in stone yet. But if you're interested in our annual trivia that we do on the podcast, just maybe keep an eye out or start considering if you want to participate. We might be announcing that in the next couple of weeks or something. We'll find out.
We'll see. If you guys don't know what that is, if you guys just started listening, go back in the episodes. We have lots of examples of trivia we've held on the podcast when I was not part of it, but trivia that that's been held on the podcast, and I think you'll enjoy it, and hopefully you'll want to join us for future trivia episodes.
Yeah, so we'll be doing that in the next probably month or so, I would assume. It's not next week. Don't get excited. We have nothing set in stone yet, but
It's
just getting it
tomorrow. No,
out
I'm
there.
kidding.
Oh God, please don't say that. A lot of other exciting things. I can't really say much now, but if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us at HHN365 on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We also have a TikTok at HHN365pod. If you want to come chat with us and Pumpkin Gamer and everybody else in our Discord, you can check that out. Our link is in the show notes description. It's also on our link tree and on all of our social medias. If you want to check out our merch, which, by the way, we might have new stuff coming soon. Duff's gonna kill me. I'm giving so much away.
So much.
If you want, I gotta do it for the people who have been with us for 2 hours now. If you made it this far, here's your little your gift. We're giving you
Exactly.
the secrets. If you want to check out our merch, that is hhn365.com. And if you want to be a part of an episode like Chero Guapo and Pumpkin Gamer, leave us a voicemail 407-906-4134. Just watch your time. As you saw again this week, 3 minutes is our limit. I can't change that. I'm so sorry. But that is all for now. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the streets.